Some moments divide your life into a before and an after. For me, that moment arrived on a rain-soaked Tuesday evening, when Marcus Chen collapsed on the basketball court, his ankle twisted at an angle that made my stomach tighten. But it wasn't the injury that changed everything. It was what he whispered to me 3 hours later in his apartment. His dark eyes vulnerable in a way I had never seen before. "Stay with me tonight, please. I don't want to be alone. I'm Tyler Bennett, and this is the story of how one night turned into something that lasted far longer than either of us expected. The gym smelled like sweat, rubber, impossibility. Our community league team, the Downtown Drifters, had been practicing for the regional championships for months. Basketball had been my escape since high school, a steady rhythm of movement and competition that kept my mind focused and my heart protected. Marcus had joined the team 8 months earlier after transferring from Seattle, carrying a quiet confidence that caught my attention immediately. He was 27, 3 years older than me, with a presence that filled a room without ever asking for attention. His jump shot was smooth, his defensive plays sharp and precise. Off the court, he was reserved, offering small smiles and thoughtful comments that made you lean in just to catch every word. I'd been drawn to him from the start, but I kept that feeling buried beneath layers of friendly professionalism. I'd learned the hard way that developing crushes on teammates, especially ones who seemed straightly led to heartache and uncomfortable locker room moments. So I kept my distance, admired quietly, pretended my pulse didn't speed up whenever he passed me the ball. "Bennett, heads up." Marcus's voice cut through my thoughts as the basketball sailed toward me. I caught it reflexively and pivoted, sinking a three-pointer that swished clean through the net. "Nice shot," he said, jogging over with that half-smile that did terrible things to my focus. His dark hair was damp with sweat, his gray practice jersey clinging to shoulders I absolutely was not staring at. "Thanks. Your assist was perfect," I replied, keeping my tone casual as I wiped my face with a towel. Toj Davis, a retired semi-pro with a whistle that could wake the dead, clapped his hands. "All right, gentlemen, let's run the pick-and-draw one more time. Chen Bennecher up. Show the others how it's done." Marcus and I had developed an almost instinctive connection on the court. He knew when I'd cut left. I knew when he'd drive right. Our plays flowed with an ease that made the rest of the team jealous and made Coach Davis beam with pride. We took our positions at the top of the key. Marcus dribbled, controlled, and deliberate. I moved to set the screen. Our bodies briefly closed as he used my stance to shake his defender. The contact sent a spark through me that I quickly pushed aside. He drove toward the basket. That's when everything went wrong. The gym floor always had a damp spot near the paint. Someone had spilled water during the break, and even though someone had tried to clean it, a thin slick remained. Marcus's foot hit that exact spot as he planted for a layup. His ankle rolled with a sharp, sickening crack that echoed through the suddenly silent gym. He went down hard, his cry of pain slicing through me. "Marcus!" I was beside him before I even realized I'd moved, dropping to my knees. His face had gone pale, his jaw tight as he clutched his ankle. "Don't move it," I said, my voice steadier than I felt. Years of first aid training kicked in, drowning out the panic. "Coach, call an ambulance, someone grab ice." The team rushed around us, but I barely noticed. My world narrowed to Marcus, to the way. His breath came in short, controlled bursts as he fought the pain. The way his hand had instinctively reached out to grab mine, squeezing hard enough that the force of his pain seemed to echo through my bones, stayed with me. "It's bad, isn't it?" he asked, voice tight. "We'll get you checked out," I said, careful not to lie, but not wanting to scare him either. The angle of his ankle already suggested a severe sprain, at the very least possibly worse. "Just breathe, I'm right here." His eyes met Mine and something unguarded passed between us. Something raw, something neither of us had words for. His fingers stayed locked around mine, even as the paramedics arrived, even as they examined him, stabilized his leg and prepared him for transport. "Will you come with me?" he whispered as they lifted him onto the stretcher. "To the hospital, of course," I said without thinking twice. "I'm not going anywhere." The emergency room was a fluorescent blur of waiting and worry. I sat in a stiff plastic chair outside his examination room, still in my sweaty practice gear, my phone buzzing nonstop with messages from teammates. "How's Marcus? Any news? Keep us updated." I answered everything on autopilot. 3 long hours crawled by before a doctor finally stepped out. Severe spinal fracture. Thank God, but he'd need to stay completely off it for at least a week, followed by careful physical therapy, crutches, pain meds, strict rest. When they finally let me in, Marcus sat on the exam table with his ankle wrapped tightly, a small prescription bag beside him, and a frustrated helplessness in his expression that I'd never seen before. "Hey," I said softly, "how are you feeling?" "Like an idiot," he muttered, dragging a hand through his hair. "One stupid slip and I'm out for weeks." "Championship. The championship doesn't matter," I cut in gently. "Your health does. We'll figure everything else out." He looked up and something shifted his composure, cracking just enough for me to see the fear beneath. "Tyler, I don't think I can manage alone. My apartment's a third floor walk up. No elevator, no family nearby, I can't." "You'll stay with me," I said before I could overthink it. "My place is ground level, guest rooms ready. No arguments." Relief washed over his features, followed by hesitation. "Are you sure? I don't want to impose." "You're not imposing," I said firmly. "You're accepting help from a friend." The ride to his apartment was quiet. Marcus staring out the window with an expression I couldn't quite read. I helped him up the 3 long flights of stairs, his weight leaning heavily into my shoulder, his jaw tight with every painful hop. Inside, we packed a quick bag: clothes, toiletries, laptop, whatever he'd need for a few days. "Something else," he said quietly as I zipped the duffel. He nodded toward his nightstand drawer. Inside was a framed photograph: Marcus with an older couple, the 3 of them smiling against the Seattle skyline. "My parents," he said softly. "They passed away 2 years ago, car accident. I moved here to start over. I guess I still talk to them sometimes. Probably sounds stupid." "It doesn't sound stupid at all," I said, placing the photo gently in the bag. "Grief doesn't follow a schedule." He nodded, something fragile flickering across his face. "Thanks for understanding. Most people just tell me to move on." "Most people are wrong," I said, earning a small, genuine smile from him. By the time we reached my apartment, it was well past midnight. Marcus was exhausted, the pain medication tugging him towards sleep. I settled him into the guest room, a simple space with a soft bed, warm lamp, and windows overlooking a courtyard garden I'd forgotten to take care of for months. "If you need anything, I'm right across the hall," I told him, adjusting his pillows and elevating his ankle. "Seriously, water, snacks, meds, whatever you need, Tyler," he said as I turned to leave, reaching out to brush his fingers lightly against my wrist. "Thank you. Really, I know I'm interrupting your life." "You're not interrupting anything," I said, though my skin burned where he touched me. "Get some rest." But when I finally lay in my own bed, sleep wouldn't come. The awareness of Marcus just across the hall hurt, vulnerable, trusting me, felt like carrying something fragile and precious. I told myself it was just concern, just responsibility, but I'd never been good at lying to myself. Dawn crept through my curtains far too soon. I'd managed maybe 3 hours of restless sleep, my mind spinning with logistics and tightly packed emotions. I dragged myself to the kitchen, half awake, measuring coffee grounds, when I heard the awkward rhythm of crutches on Hardwood followed by a muffled curse, Marcus stood in the doorway, hair mussed, unsteady on his crutches, wearing gray sweatpants and a white t-shirt that had absolutely no right to look that good. "What are you doing up?" I asked, moving toward him instinctively. "You should have called if you needed me." "I can manage," he insisted, the stubborn tilt in his jaw warning me he was about to do something reckless. I just needed his crutch snagged on the corner of the rug. He stumbled and I lunged forward, catching him before he could put weight on his injured ankle. We ended up pressed together, my arms around his waist, his hands gripping my shoulders, both of us frozen in the unexpected closeness. "Okay, new rule," I said, my voice rougher than I intended, painfully aware of the warmth of him, the clean scent of his soap, the way his breath hitched. "You ask for help. Pride doesn't heal injuries. I'm not great at asking for help," he admitted quietly, not stepping away. "Then you're about to get a lot of practice," I said, guiding him carefully to the kitchen table. "Sit, I'll get whatever you need." He sat, something complicated flickering in his expression. "I wanted coffee," he said softly, "and maybe breakfast. I just don't want to be a burden." "Keep using that word," I said, turning back to the coffee maker. "I don't think it means what you think it means." "Scrambled eggs. I make a mean breakfast burrito," I said. "That sounds amazing." We slipped into an easy, rhythmic cooking, him sitting at the table pretending to check emails on his phone while actually watching me with an intensity I could feel like a physical touch. I kept the conversation going to fill the comfortable silence, asking him about his work as a graphic designer, his thoughts on the team's chances once he healed his favorite food so I could stock the kitchen right. With each answer, each small detail, the careful distance between us seemed to shrink. "You didn't have to take me in," he said suddenly as I set a loaded breakfast burrito in front of him. "You barely know me outside of basketball." I sat across from him with my own plate, choosing my words with care. "Maybe that's true, but sometimes you know someone in the ways that matter. You show up to every practice early. You stay late to help the younger guys with their form. You listen more than you talk. And you order pineapple on pizza, which is objectively the correct choice, no matter what anyone says." He laughed, genuine, surprised, warm. "You noticed all that?" "I notice everything about you," I thought, but instead I smiled. "I'm observant, comes with being a good teammate." His eyes met mine, searching. "Is that what we are, teammates?" The question hung between us, heavy with meaning I wasn't brave enough to unpack. "We're friends," I said carefully. "At least I hope we are." "Yeah," he murmured, something like disappointment passing across his face. "Friends." We ate quietly after that, but the word echoed in my mind. Something between us had shifted. The sunlight spilling across Marcus' dark hair highlighted his features, and I found myself memorizing the moment, the easy warmth of shared breakfast, the way his presence filled my home in a way that felt startlingly right. After we finished eating, I helped Marcus back to the guest room. He insisted on working from his laptop despite my suggestion to rest. I left him to it and returned to my own small office to tackle my design projects, though my focus was shot. Around noon, I checked on him and found him asleep, his laptop still open beside him. His face was relaxed in a way it never was when he was awake. I gently moved the computer, pulled a light blanket over him, stood there a moment longer than I should have, watching him breathe. Friends, I reminded myself firmly, he needed a friend, not someone losing control of his feelings. But when I closed his door and returned to my desk, I knew the truth. Whatever I felt for Marcus Chen had crossed the line from admiration into something deeper, something both exhilarating and terrifying. The question was what I was supposed to do about it. 3 days into our unexpected cohabitation, I'd learned more about Marcus than I had in 8 months of practices. I learned that he hummed off-key when he thought no one was listening, that he took his coffee with an unreasonable amount of sugar, that once you got past his quiet exterior, he had a dry, self-mocking sense of humor. I also learned that living this close to someone I was quietly falling for was its own kind of sweet torture. By Wednesday afternoon, we were on the couch together. His injured ankle rested on a pillow in my lap as we watched old championship highlights. His physical therapy instructions were strict television. Nurse, much to his alternating amusement and frustration. "You don't have to do all this," Marcus said, for what felt like the 10th time as I adjusted the ice pack. "I can manage some of it." "I know you can," I said, keeping my tone and my touch steady despite the way my pulse reacted to him. "But you don't have to, that's the whole point." He studied me for a long moment with that intense focus I'd gotten used to. "Why are you so good at this, taking care of people? Most guys our age would have dropped me off with frozen pizza and called it a day." I paused, my hand resting on the ice pack. "My mom's a retired hospice nurse. Growing up, I watched her take care of people during their hardest moments. She always said, real strength isn't about never needing help. It's about being brave enough to accept it when you do and generous enough to offer it without expecting anything back." "She sounds amazing," Marcus said softly. "She is," I corrected quickly. "She lives in Arizona now with my aunt. Spends her days gardening and complaining about the heat." I smiled. "She'd like you, I think." "What makes you say that?" "She always appreciated people who were genuine, who didn't pretend to be something they're not." I met his eyes, then looked away when I realized how vulnerable I sounded. "That's you." The air between us shifted thick with something unspoken. Marcus opened his mouth as if to respond, but my phone buzzed. "Coach Davis team's asking about Chen. How's he doing? Thinking of visiting this weekend." I showed Marcus the message. His expression tightened instantly, panic flickering across his face. "You don't want visitors?" I asked gently. "It's not that, He ran a hand through his hair. I'd learned that gesture meant anxiety. "I don't like people seeing me like this. Helpless, dependent." "You're not helpless," I said firmly. "You're healing. That's not the same thing." "Feels the same from where I'm sitting." I understood that kind of pride, the fear of people seeing the cracks. "What if I told them you need more time?" "I can arrange something once you're more mobile." Relief softened his whole expression. "Would you mind?" "I know it's stupid." "It's not stupid. Your comfort matters." I texted back a quick reply to the coach and set my phone down. "For the record, the team cares about you. They're not judging." "I know," he said with a sigh. "Logically, I know that. I'm just not good at needing people." "Is that why you moved here after your parents died?" I asked softly. "To avoid needing anyone." His eyes snapped. "To," mine surprised, unguarded. "How did you said you moved to start over." But sometimes starting over and running away looked similar. He didn't respond immediately. For a moment I thought I'd pushed too far, but then his shoulders dropped. "After they died, everyone treated me like I was fragile," he said quietly. "People meant well, but I felt like I was drowning in their sympathy. So I took a contract here, packed up. Told myself I was being independent. But independence and isolation aren't the same thing," I said gently. "No," he said with a small, tired exhale. "They're not. I've been so focused on not needing anyone that I forgot how to let people in." Until he trailed off. But his eyes stayed locked on mine. The air between us felt charged, electric. "Until I echoed." "Until you," he said. "Until I hit the gym floor and you dropped everything to help me. Until you brought me into your home and treated my fear with kindness, not judgment. Until I realized that maybe letting someone in takes more strength than pretending you're fine." My heartbeat pounded in my chest. "Marcus, I'm saying this badly," he said quickly, color rising in his cheeks. "What I mean is, thank you for seeing me, for helping me, for." He gestured between us. Whatever this is, The phrase lingered warm, terrifying. Hopeful, I wanted to ask what he meant, wanted to admit everything I'd been feeling, wanted to lean in and erase the space between us instead. I managed only 2 words, "You're welcome." Marcus was quiet for a moment, turning a piece of bell pepper over in his hands like it held answers he wasn't sure how to say out loud. The kitchen filled with the soft sounds of the stove sizzling, brain pattering faintly outside after last night's storm and his soft, steady breathing. Finally he spoke. "Tyler, there's something else I've been thinking about. Not bad, just big." I set the knife down slowly, giving him my full attention. "Okay, big I can handle." He swallowed, his eyes flicking up to mine before darting away again. "I don't want this." He gestured between us to feel like something temporary, like a storm night mistake, or a comfort thing, or a convenience, because we were already living together. My heartbeat kicked up. "Marcus," I said softly, "nothing about this feels temporary." "I know," he exhaled shakily, "and that's exactly what scares me. Because I'm falling for you way faster than I expected, faster than I should." I rounded the counter and leaned against it next to him. "There's no should," I said gently. "There's only what's real." Its eyes lifted to mine again, and this time he didn't look away. "What's real?" he said quietly. "Is that being with you feels like the first time I've been able to breathe in years, and that terrifies me because you matter too much." My throat tightened. I brushed my fingers across his cheek, letting him feel the certainty he was scared to trust. "Maybe that's what makes it worth it," I said. He leaned into my touch slightly, barely, but enough to make my entire chest warm. "We're going to figure this out," I promised. "No labels, no deadlines, no pressure, just us." Marcus exhaled a breath that sounded like relief. "Okay," he whispered, "okay." We finished cooking in a comfortable quiet, stealing occasional glances like teenagers too shy to admit they were starring. When dinner was ready, we ate at the small table together, our first meal as something more than friends. Though neither of us dared say it out loud halfway through the meal, Marcus set down his fork. "Tyler," he said softly, "can I ask you something kind of personal?" Always, he hesitated. "Were you ever afraid to be with a man? Not just the coming out part, the emotional part." I considered it. "Yeah," I admitted. "Not because I didn't want it, because letting someone see the real you, every fear, every flaw, that's terrifying no matter who you're with." Marcus nodded slowly. "That's what scares me," he said. "Letting myself want this. Won't you?" My heart clenched. "You don't have to be perfect," I said. "You just have to be honest with me and with yourself." Reached across the table tentatively and hooked his pinky with mine. It was such a simple gesture, small, soft, and somehow more intimate than any kiss we'd shared. "Okay," he murmured, "honest." We finished dinner like that, hands touching, breath catching every time our eyes met. Later, after the kitchen was cleaned and Marcus settled back on the couch with his ankle propped up, I joined him, sitting close enough that our shoulders brushed. He didn't move away. "I like this," he said suddenly. "Which part?" "All of it, the normal stuff. Dinner, talking, just being next to you." I smiled. "Good," I said softly, "because I'm not going anywhere." He let out a soft laugh, leaned his head against my shoulder and whispered, "I'm really glad you took me home that night." I pressed a kiss to the top of his hair. "Me too." We stayed like that until he fell asleep against me, his breath warm on my collarbone. I adjusted him gently, easing him down so he could rest more comfortably. As I went a stand, his fingers curled weakly around my wrist, even in sleep, like he didn't want to let go. I stayed because I didn't want to let go either, though. I have to say, you being considerate while kneeling between my legs is doing things to me. I laughed, the tension breaking just enough for us both to breathe. Noted. "But I mean it. Marcus, I'm not going anywhere. You don't have to pretend you're fine." He didn't answer right away. Instead, His gaze softened like something inside him just unlocked. "Tyler," he whispered, "you don't know how much that means." I felt it then, the shift, the air between us warming, tightening, filling with something fragile and electric at the same time. I reached up, brushing a loose strand of hair from his forehead. My fingers lingered without meaning to. He didn't pull away. If anything, he leaned in. "Tonight," he murmured, voice unsteady but honest, "I just need someone who feels safe." My chest tightened. "You have me," I said. "You've always had me." His breath hitched, quiet but real. His hand slid over mine, his thumb tracing slow circles against my skin. It was such a small gesture, yet it hit harder than any kiss ever could. "Tyler," he whispered again, "come here." I moved closer, and he guided my hand up to his cheek. His eyes fluttered, shut like he was letting himself feel something he'd held back for too long. When he opened them again, they were shining, raw, hopeful. "Can I?" he asked softly. "You can," I breathed. He leaned in, closing the space between us in a hesitant, searching kiss, warm and slow, as if he was afraid to rush whatever was happening. My heart kicked against my ribs. His fingers slid into my hair, pulling me just a little closer. Grounding himself in the contact, everything outside his apartment faded. The rain, the game, the world, this moment was ours. He kissed me again, deeper this time, and a small sound escaped him, a quiet exhale that felt like a confession. I wrapped an arm around his shoulders, pulling him gently into me so he didn't have to hold himself up. "Stay," he whispered against my lips. "Please just stay." "I'm here," I said, "all night, as long as you need." His forehead rested against mine. His hand found mine and held it tightly, like he was anchoring himself to something solid. The warmth between us grew soft and safe and impossibly tender. He breathed my name once quietly, and then wrapped in the hush of rain. Against the windows, in the dim glow of his bedroom lamp, we moved closer, slowly, gently, letting the moment unfold in its own time. The night did rush, it simply held us, and everything after shifted. "Your comfort and pleasure matter more than anything else," I whispered. Marcus stared at me with a softness that made my chest ache. "I know," he said. "That's one of the reasons I love you." Everything that followed was slow, gentle, and full of trust. We explored each other with patience, with communication, with careful attention to what felt good and what didn't. Marcus was eager, a little unsure, but incredibly thoughtful. His hands trembled slightly when he touched me, not from fear but from wanting to get it right. "Tell me what you like," he murmured against my neck, his fingers trailing over my chest. "You," I said, breath catching, "just you." All of this, we were careful with his ankle, creative with positions, laughing whenever something didn't quite work. And when we finally moved together in a way that fit, something unhurried, something warm, it was perfect in its own earnest, imperfect way. Later we lay tangled in each other, sweaty and smiling like idiots. "So," Marcus said, tracing a lazy line across my chest, "that was earth-shattering, life-altering. The best experience in the history of existence." I snorted, obviously. He laughed, a free, joyful sound that filled the room. I was going to say amazing, but sure, he teased. "Let's boost that ego." I tickled his ribs, earning a yelp, before remembering his ankle and pulling him gently back into my arms. "Seriously," he murmured, his voice softer, his head resting on my shoulder. "Thank you for making it feel natural. Safe, for not making me feel awkward or inexperienced." "You weren't awkward," I said, kissing his forehead. "We're just learning each other. That's the whole point." His eyes fluttered as sleep pulled at him. "I want to learn everything about you. Every freckle, every smile you will," I whispered. "We've got time, all the time we need." Monday evening, back at practice. Walking into the gym, Monday evening felt like stepping into a different life, one that somehow made more sense than the one before. The familiar scent of rubber and sweat, the echo of bouncing basketballs, the low hum of chatter. It was comforting. Marcus had been cleared for light practice. No drills with contact yet, but enough to warm up, enough to feel like himself again. I drove us both there, and I felt the nervousness vibrating off him the entire ride. "You ready?" I asked as we sat in the car. "For practice or for telling them?" He asked, giving a nervous half-smile. "Both," I said. He blew out of breath. "Then yeah, I'm ready." Watching him move on the court, even with restrictions, felt like watching him return to the world. When he sank a perfect jump shot and grinned like sunlight breaking through clouds, I understood why people said sports could be poetry. "Looking good, Chen," Coach Davis shouted. "Take it easy, though." "No." Heroics as coach. Marcus called back, jogging toward me, and I didn't miss the softened look in his eyes when they met mine. Practice was productive and full of awful jokes from the team about Marcus's grandpa crutch swag. Hi, the usual warmth when coach called us in for the closing huddle. I felt Marcus's hand brush the small of my back, a barely there touch but grounding. Steadying. "I want to say something," Marcus said, stepping forward. The team quieted immediately. "Most of you know I got injured a few weeks back," he began. "What you don't know is that Tyler pretty much kept me sane. He took me in, helped me put up with me being me." A few teammates laughed sympathetically. Marcus swallowed then looked directly at me, and everything in him steadied. "Somewhere in those weeks," he continued, "something changed. We went from teammates to friends to more than friends. Tyler and I are together, and I wanted you to know because you're our family, and because I'm not hiding something that makes me this happy." One heartbeat, another. Then Jake threw his hands up. Finally, he groaned dramatically. "Dude, I was this close to locking you two in a supply closet." The tension was killing me. Laughter exploded across the circle. Coach Davis stepped forward, placing a hand on Marcus' shoulder. "Proud of you, Chen. Proud of both of you," he said warmly. "Takes courage to live honestly, and courage is something this team respects." He looked at all of us. "We're a family here. We look out for each other. That doesn't change." Marcus exhaled a shaky, relieved breath, then glanced at me with a smile that made my heart feel too big for my chest. And for the first time, everything felt exactly right. He kissed me soft and sweet, a promise sealed in the fluorescent lights of a locker room that smelled like sweat and victory. For a long moment, we just sat there, medals resting against our chests, our knees touching, the echo of distant celebration drifting down the hallway. The world outside felt loud, electric, overwhelming, but in here everything was calm, grounded. "Ours, Tyler," Marcus said quietly. "Yeah. Can we stay like this a little longer? Just existing before the chaos starts?" Again, I leaned my shoulder against his. "We can stay as long as you want. We earned this." He laughed softly, that warm, breathless laugh I'd learned to treasure. 6 months ago, I thought my life had hit a dead end. Injury, isolation, feeling like everything I'd worked for was slipping away. He turned toward me, eyes glowing with something deeper than happiness, something like peace. And now, he whispered, "I'm living a life I never knew was possible." I brushed a thumb over his cheek. "Things change fast sometimes, as they do," he agreed. "But I'm glad this changed. I'm glad we changed." We sat in comfortable silence as the noise outside swelled. Music shouting, the metallic echo of someone dropping a water bottle, the soundtrack of victory, ready to face the madhouse. I asked. Marcus grinned. "Only if you're next to me." Always. We stood, medals clinking together, and walked out of the locker room hand in hand. The hallway erupted as soon as people saw us, teammates cheering, a couple of them chanting MVP couple in the worst possible falsetto, coach shaking his head with a smile like he'd known this would happen all along. But Marcus didn't shy away. He didn't drop my hand. If anything, his grip tightened. Proud, sure, unafraid. Later at the after-party, surrounded by friends and noise and the buzz of celebration, Marcus leaned in close, his lips brushing my ear. "Tyler, yeah, I want all of this. All of us for a long time, not just tonight, not just this season. I want a future with you." My chest tightened, full and warm. "Good," I said, "because I want that too." His smile softened, tender and certain. "Then it settled," he said. "This is just the beginning." Under the glow of championship lights, surrounded by the people who'd become our family, we sealed the promise with a kiss. Not rushed, not hidden, but open and fearless. Not a victory kiss, not a championship kiss, but a forever kind of kiss. The celebration swallowed us the second we stepped inside. Music thumped against the walls. Someone popped open a bottle of sparkling cider in confetti. God knows where they even got it trained down over the team. Marcus's name echoed across the room in a chorus of cheers. But when he looked at me, it felt like all the noise softened around the edges. My heart did that stupid flutter. Always did when he smiled at me, like that soft private, like I was the only thing anchoring him in the room. "You sure about this?" I murmured, leaning close so only he could hear. "Moving in, blending our lives, all of it." We squeezed, my hand beneath the table, hidden but steady. "I've never been more sure of anything," he whispered back. "You think I asked just anyone to tolerate my snoring?" I snorted. "Snoring, Marcus? That's not snoring, that's a natural disaster." He nudged me with his shoulder, trying not to laugh, failing. "Well, now it'll be our natural disaster." And just like that, the weight in my chest dissolved into a warm, glowing hum. The team eventually dragged Marcus into a retelling of the win. Everyone shouting over each other, reenacting the final plays with exaggerated theatrics. And while they celebrated him, he kept glancing back at me, each look saying, "I'm coming back to you, I always will." After a while, he caught my eye again, eyebrows raised in a silent question. "You okay?" I nodded, letting my fingers brush his where no one could see. "More than okay." When the crowd finally thinned and music softened, Marcus tugged me toward the hallway. "Come on," he murmured. "I need 5 minutes of you before my head explodes." We slipped into the quiet corridor, the sounds of the party muffled behind the gym doors. The air smelled like wood polish and worn leather. Familiar grounding. "This," he said, turning to face me fully, "is the part I want for the rest of my life. The quiet moments, the space where it's just us." I cupped his jaw, thumb brushing the faint stubble along his cheek. "We'll have that," I whispered. "Every day." He leaned into my hand like he always did, eyes softening with something deeper than gratitude, something that felt like home. "You know," Marcus said, voice low, "I thought the turning point for me was the injury. I thought it was the thing that changed everything." "It wasn't," I whispered. "No," he agreed. "The real turning point was when I realized losing basketball scared me less than losing you." The words hit me like an impact straight to the ribs, gentle but undeniable. I stepped closer, forehead touching his. "I'm not going anywhere," I said. "Not tonight, not tomorrow, not after we burn your kitchen down trying to cook breakfast." He laughed softly, breath brushing my lips. "You say that like it hasn't happened before." "And it will again," I said, "and we'll still be okay." "Yeah," he breathed, "we will." We stood there for a long moment, suspended in something warm and unshakable, the kind of quiet that settles into your bones and stays there. When Marcus finally spoke, his voice was almost a whisper. "Let's start our life," he said. "Tonight?" I asked. He shook his head. "Right now," and with his hand in mine. We stepped back toward the noise, the lights, the laughter waiting for us, toward teammates who had become family, toward choices we'd make together, toward a future we were building piece by piece. Nothing felt uncertain anymore, nothing felt halfway. This wasn't just love, this was home. We stepped out of the corridor, hand in hand, into the hum of celebration, into the lights and laughter, into the life we had chosen together. Every glance, every touch, every quiet word between us had led Herod at this moment of certainty, of joy, of love fully realized. We had started as teammates, became friends, and had now built something neither of us could have predicted but both had wanted all along. A life shared, a love nurtured, partnership chosen every single day. That night, walking home under the city, lights, fingers entwined, hearts unburdened, I realized that some moments split your life into before and after. The accident, the injury, the quiet mornings, the first kisses, they were all part of the before. But this love, this home, this certainty was the after, and for the rest of our lives we would choose it together, because love, the real kind, wasn't about perfect timing or flawless circumstances. It was about being brave enough to open your heart, to trust someone else with it, and to build a life hand in hand, step by step, and we had done exactly that. The end.